Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to today's edition of the Gripe Session podcast, as well as those watching on YouTube, watching us down the road when we post this. As keeping with our baseball tradition over the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of our former Mets players. Today is no exception. Will help me welcome today former catcher for the New York Mets, a good friend of mine from the fantasy camp, Josh Thole. Josh, tell everybody what's up.
Wani, how are you? Hello to everybody out there listening. Excited to get this to the YouTubes.
That's great. That's great. So definitely we appreciate you. When I asked you in camp if you were willing to do the podcast, you said 100%. So I definitely appreciate having you on here today, just like all the other players that have been so gracious with their time. So Josh, I know you know a lot of people know that you've played in the majors. So give a little bit of blah blah blah. Excuse me. Give us a brief description of your career, how you started off, and go from there.
Great, yeah. So I was drafted by the New York Mets in 2005. Came through the minor leagues with the Mets, got to the major leagues in 2009. Um, Kind of found a niche in catching R.A. Dickey in 2010, still being the everyday catcher through 2010, 2011, into 12. And then after the 2012 season, got traded to the Blue Jays along with RA for obviously Noah Syndergaard, who was one of the horses in that deal. And then went to the Blue Jays, spent 4 years there, and then been bouncing around really after the 2016 season. Had a couple playoff runs with the Blue Jays in 2015 and 16, and then 2017, 18, 19, 20. Just been bouncing around the minor leagues, Diamondbacks, Tigers, Angels, Dodgers, Yankees, just kind of living the minor league tour bus life, if you will. But this year was my first year that I've kind of stepped aside from the game. Never really officially retired. I have 3 kids at home, and my wife runs her own Pilates studio. So we're busy, soccer, basketball, as you guys all listening with kids can imagine. So it's nice to be home, and I had an absolute blast at the fantasy camp. I have to tell you, if anybody that's listening that has not been there, get your name on the list. It was the coolest 2 weeks of an experience of my life.
So one of the things that we've had obviously a lot of the former players on, and actually Turk Wendell had actually said this, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make week 2 this year. But when he was on the podcast, one of the things he said was he wished he knew about fantasy camp when he was a player, because he would have loved to have been a part of it in some way and kind of go from there. Would you kind of echo that sentiment? And do you think that the current players kind of have any idea of this? And do you think some of them would take part? Do you think some of them wouldn't? What's your opinion on that, actually?
Well, yeah, Turk is spot on. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I showed up on Sunday. I really knew nobody other than Nelson Figueroa. I mean, obviously you know who the guys are,
Sure.
but I mean, Mookie was a coach, Hojo was a hitting coach when I was there, but it wasn't like guys that I really played with other than Figgy. So I was kind of lost, didn't know what to expect, and I would say the same thing. If I knew what that was, 100% you could get a. There'll be guys that wouldn't want to do it, but you would get a handful of guys that would come down every year, even if they come for 3 or 4 days, and just take it all in. It's so much fun. I have to tell you, Wani, I did not realize how intense these games were.
Well,
It,
it's because we're all about, as I've said in this podcast a number of different times, is we're all hacks living the dream, right? So like all you players have played the game and you've lived the boyhood dream out. And when we even some of the older participants in camp, or the more established or senior people in camp, they still have that drive and determination to play that game. And because there's a lot of pride and there's a lot of shit talking. That's the nicest way to say it. There's a lot
yeah,
of
it's the
shit talking
nicest
that
way to
goes
talk. Yeah,
associated with it, but
yeah.
which is all in good fun. But they definitely get intense at times. So
You you know one thing, Wani, I didn't realize the relationships that were built. I just figured we came down, we signed some autographs, hung out with the guys, talked Mets baseball, talked baseball,
yeah,
but I talked to Pat Mascarini the other day for freaking an hour on the phone. Like, it's those type of conversations that are it is. It's those relationships that you cherish. It's these relationships that you it that will never go away at this point. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that I took more out of that than anything.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, let me apologize for you having to talk to Pat Mascarini on the phone for an hour. We'll do that on behalf of all campers everywhere. But no, I
Thank
love
you.
Pat. I love
Yeah.
Pat. Pat's an awesome guy. Just like everybody in camp is awesome. But that's the thing that I try to explain to people when we talk about fantasy camp, and a lot of people have heard these stories before. But as a kid, I had a poster of Doc on my wall with him throwing the ball, but the back of the ball was the airplane exhaust.
Yeah.
And now, because I've gone to camp and this was my third year, I have Doc Gooden's cell phone number in my phone.
Yeah. It's
It
mind
just
blowing.
blows. It's
Yeah.
mind blowing. And the best part is, like we talk about Mets fantasy camp, but a lot of times we call it Mets family camp because of, like you just said, the relationships that develop from camp. Like, we talk year round to people, we text messages. Some of us have played in on teams and tournaments outside of camp. But Doug's made this such a great Doug Dickey has made this such a great camp that he's had 2 weeks and now might even have to have a third week because of so many people that want to do
Yep.
this.
Yep.
So, which
Doug
is a
Dickey,
testament to Doug. So
you're exactly right. Doug Dickey does not get paid enough money because I tell you, it is Mets family camp. That you could not have said it better. That's exactly what it is. It's the long-lasting relationships that we all will have. Myself with the old coaches, myself with the campers. I mean, I talk to Turk pretty much every day, via text.
yeah.
It's just you build those relationships and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny, one of the things that obviously a lot of people know that I just recently ran for office, and guys in camp knew that, just found out and they were wearing my shirts that I gave out to people. But what one of the things that goes back into that family camp situation is I got a text message one day from Kurt, and he was my Turk, and he was my locker mate last year. And he said, anything I could do to help you in your race, let me know. And I'm like, well, if you want to do like an endorsement video, that would be cool. I'd try to use that down the road. And I've completely forgot about it. Completely forgot about it. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get this video message from Turk. Hey, this is Turk Wendell of the New York Mets. I'm asking you to cast your vote for George Monica for city council. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I know, it's just the great aspect of this is, like I said, everybody becomes friends, and it's just great. But anyway, I don't want to talk about fantasy camp too much,
Yeah.
otherwise we'll be here for a couple of hours at a
That's
time.
right.
Then I'll
That's
be
right.
the next Pat Mascarini. That's got way too many shout outs on this podcast already, so we gotta limit that now.
Okay.
But anyways, so in your career, what would you say would be one of your uh, greatest accomplishments during the course of your career? In your opinion, would it be
Yeah,
a team accomplishment, an individual accomplishment?
I think it's twofold. I'll break it down into two.
Okay.
Obviously, getting to the postseason with the group in Toronto that we had
Mhm.
was an experience I'll never forget. Um, that's a different type of baseball. Um, that's from the team perspective. From the personal side, obviously catching Johan's no hitter on June 1st, 2012 is something that will always be with me. And as I tell everybody, and I tell young catchers that I give lessons to, nobody can strip that away from me, you know? And that to me, that was a coming up and not being the first round pick, being a 13th rounder, going step by step in the minor leagues and then accomplishing that on a personal level was something that will always have a spot in my heart.
Talk about that's great, and we'll definitely get into that no hitter. Talk about that step um moving up the ladder, if you will. And because I get a lot of former players as I've coached little league and travel ball at times, basketball, and talk about the work that goes into from one step to the next step to the next step. Because again, a lot of people always talk about being drafted, and if you're good enough, they're going to find you. and working and getting those breaks as a draftee. But talk about the work that goes in, or that you put in, and even if times got frustrating, how did you deal with that as a player?
Yeah, so failure, let me start by saying failure was one of the hardest things to learn. As I was coming up into high school, like, anybody that played in the big leagues was probably the stud high school baseball player, or was one of them if there's multiple, right? And we never failed. Once you get to professional baseball, you fail, and you fail, and you fail. It's the game of failure, right? For me, that was the hardest thing to kind of adapt to, is pretty much sucking. What do you do when you're 0 for 20? Well, here's what you do. And I've been fortunate enough. Gary Carter was one of my first managers. You pick Gary's brain on how you deal with it, you're gonna find answers. I had a lot of great coaches, Tim Tuffle, all these guys along the way that had really helped me from that perspective. Now, the work piece of it when I was younger was, you do things that you necessarily don't wanna do, but you know that it's a sacrifice, right? For example, I was getting recruited heavily by colleges. I knew my role all winter had to be to hit. I had to hit. That's what got me there. And Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, New Year's, me and my father hit every single day. And I think that work ethic translated to when I got into professional baseball, because there's no off days. You show up at the field in spring training at 6:30 in the morning, you start working. You work until lunch, you take a break, and then you go play a game. So building the work ethic when I was younger, because I do say this, yes, I can teach you work ethic, but most importantly, you have to have the drive to want to do, to want to work, if that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
For I have a kid that is probably the most talented catcher I have right now that I give lessons to, and I have to push him a little bit to want to work. I shouldn't have to do that, right? It should be ingrained in you. It was ingrained in me,
Mhm.
and as you go through the minor leagues, there's, as I say, there's no off days. Tony Bernazard was a guy who was the assistant GM under Omar,
Mhm.
who got fired because he blew our team up in Double A that year. But let me tell you, this guy demanded a high work ethic, and thank goodness I had it, because the guys that didn't have it all got released. I witnessed it. Some of my best friends got released because they thought they were there just to cash the check. And I think the work ethic starts much younger than just professional baseball.
Mhm.
I think it starts, these high school years are important for these kids, and
Mhm.
that's where it needs to start, and the will to want to work.
Okay, that's great. And that's definitely much appreciated, because we always talk about work ethic and people willing to work and stuff like that. And we listen, back when I was a kid, I definitely wanted to play video games and do all that stuff that goes on. But if you've got those certain goals, then you've got to make, as you said, the sacrifices. So
Yeah, right. And I think it goes twofold. It doesn't necessarily have to be for baseball, right? Like, I had the drive and passion. My work ethic was in baseball. I
mhm.
have to tell you, I was a horseshit math. I was horseshit at math, right? So I knew where I
But you knew 3 for 10 is 300. You knew
I
that's
did
the only
know that.
part. You didn't
I
know
had
that
the
though.
average. I had the average down. That's
You
for
got that
sure.
part of math down now.
Yeah, but the work ethic can be applied. Like, I'm not playing right now, but my work ethic never leaves me. And I think that's, if for any kids that are listening, that's the thing to take away, is you can develop a work ethic at no matter what you do, it
Mhm.
will translate. It's just you have to have the drive and want.
Yeah. Great, great. So, talk about, one of the things that being a coach and being around Little League and being around travel ball, with pitchers as well as catchers, and my son's is a lefty pitcher, coincidentally. And when it comes to, uh, I watch so many people in travel ball and Little League watch the coaches call a game, right? And not necessarily the catchers, to which I've always had an issue with that, because my thing is, how do you, as a catcher, how do you learn how to call a game? When Johan had that no hitter, which you call, did you call a game? Did the manager call a game? Did somebody else call a game? or go from there. Could you talk about a little bit about actually a combination of those processes? Because I'm very curious as to somebody who's been a catcher in the big leagues, what your process is as far as that goes.
Yes. So I'll make this one threefold. So yes, during the no hitter, I mean, even my whole tenure in the major leagues, we called the games. The catchers called the games. Now that's shifting a little bit right now with the analytics and the wristband and all of that. And um, there's a lot of variables that go into that. So this is a very soft spot for me because I get very frustrated. I do believe catchers should call their own games. There's too many things that go into what we see underneath of the hitter. For example, we can see a guy's take. We can see a guy grimace if he takes a swing. There's a lot of different things that we see that nobody else in the ballpark sees.
Mhm.
I believe so leading into that is the work that goes into preparing yourself for a game like that. Meaning, when we get to the ballpark in the major leagues at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we spend an hour going over scouting reports. Pitching coach will put his together. The analytics guys will put theirs together. You put yours together. You meet and you meet in the middle. And sometimes, you got to choke on your pride a little bit. And sometimes you have good information to pass along. So in my opinion, there should be a collaborative group amongst those three to put together a true plan. And then at the end of the day, the onus goes on the pitcher and catcher. The pitcher has the opportunity to shake. The catcher gives what we call is a suggestion, right? With the suggestion, there has to be a plan with that suggestion. You can't say, "Well, I just thought it was a good time to do that." No, you, you have to have a reason for why you did X, Y, and Z, right? That now is getting away. I don't I again, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that catchers are spending as much time in the video room
Mhm.
studying the hitter's swings because they're getting everything handed to them. It all comes in a big packet with your wristband on top, and it tells you exactly what to do ahead in the count, behind in the count, even in the count. Like there's more to the game. So I get very passionate when I talk about that piece of it because I teach my high school catchers to call their own games.
Mhm.
I think high school and college coaches do themselves a disservice by calling games for their catchers. How number one, how is a catcher ever going to learn? If I
That's
was a if I
half
was
point.
right, if I was a scouting director, I would not take a college catcher unless you have somebody in place to teach him how to call a game. Because I went to a Stanford ASU game one time and it was a 4.5 hour, 9 inning game. Why was it 4.5 hours? Because after each pitch, the catcher stood up, the coach is in the corner, he's doing numbers and all of this, and then he flips his wristband up and he looks at it, and then and then he squats down. There's no rhythm to the game. These guys don't know. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know what they're looking for. And that's something that I wish would change in the game. I wish that would go the other way because that's what we live for. That's what catchers live for. We live for the moments of calling the game. The no hitter wouldn't mean as much to me if I didn't do anything other than just stop the ball, right?
And you looked over that way and say, okay, that's what they want. Go ahead, you do it and go from there. I'm just the guy
Yeah.
catching it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we put a plan together and we stuck to our plan and the Johan, he shook plenty of times over the course of that game. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
It means more, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And I hate that kids are losing the instincts for the game, and that's one of the instincts they're losing.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I've actually had issues with that coming from a little league perspective, and now some of the stuff I'm watching, at high school levels and high school travel ball, and I'm watching all of this other stuff, and I'm like, how is that kid going to learn how to call a game? Like, that's not helping them to have the conversation, like you said, have the instincts. See, okay, this guy is way the heck out in front of something. Okay, well, now does that mean you're going to try to throw a ball past him? Does it mean, and where is the fact of saying, okay, that didn't work. Let me get my failure and learn from my failure.
The
We're not teaching them to fail. We're teaching them to be robots and just say, okay, well, if it's on you regardless, but not the call is on you.
right, yeah. No,
And they don't want to shake. And the other half is they don't want to shake off their coach.
they won't. They won't.
They won't. They're just like,
Y-
okay, that's what he wants
y-
me to throw. It could be it's like I don't have a feel for it, but let me throw it because that's what he's telling me to throw.
That's right. I always say this to my pitchers. What I put down as a suggestion, you have to have 100% conviction in what you do. If if I know that a breaking ball puts the hitter on time and I want a fastball and he shakes me, I want another fastball, he shakes me again. Okay, he wants his curveball. He has conviction in it. You know what? Go back next time you watch a big league game, if we get to watch one this year, watch
We'll get there
what
in a second.
yeah, I know. Watch how many watch what happens. Most of them are mistakes, right? You throw a good breaking ball, guys aren't gonna hit it. Mark Burley used to never shake the catcher because he said, "If I execute my pitch, I win." And it's true. Pitch execution is 95% of it.
Okay. So leading right into one of your last statements, which I said we'd get into, obviously the lockout. When we're recording this today, looks like there's going to be a lockout as of I believe today, if I recall the date or time correctly. What's your obviously you've played, and so there is that dynamic of owners and players and things of that nature. What's your opinion as to the a lot of the things that's currently being talked about, meaning not just obviously money, but things such as the shift, the universal DH, the clock on pitchers. Which I talked to Traxel and I go, well, the dumb clock, you must have broken that clock if you were still pitching today, you would have broken that clock. Huh? So which he got a kick out of that. But what's your opinion on a lot of the things going on around the game right now?
Well, I'm an old-fashioned baseball person, right? I appreciate the game for what it was. I appreciate the game for how I was brought up. With that being said, I understand where we are in life and in society, having the ability to adapt to change. I think change can be good at times.
Mhm.
Um, I think we're in a lockout where we are today strictly because of the economics. I necessarily don't think it's do we make the base bigger? What do we do with the pitch clock? A lot of it, I think, really comes down to economics. I was fortunate enough to be on the negotiating committee in 2016 and 2011. One of my that right there was one of the coolest experiences as well, being in professional baseball, sitting at the bargaining table with owners. It comes down to dollar bills. I mean, I can honestly probably sit here and say almost 100%. The owners could care less if the base is X big or Y big. They just want to know how it affects their pocketbooks, right?
Mhm.
So, the rule change. Like, I'm an old-fashioned National League guy. I like National League baseball. I think there's a strategy you got to manage.
I
You
agree.
can't just can't sit on your ass, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on American League managers. I'm just saying, like, there's less work to do.
Yeah.
Right now, there's even less work to do because the front offices are sending down their lineups.
Yeah.
So hell, you really just gotta hope to God nobody gets in a fight and be a man of the people and be done, right? But I think the economics are getting in the way right now. I think the Major League Baseball is trying to steer the players apart, and that's why there's a lockout. I It appeared that they had no interest in moving the needle at all, um, from the end of the season till today, and that's unfortunate because we're living in a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Uh,
and we have billionaires fighting with millionaires, and we can't get shit together. Like that, I mean, we're it's a pissing match over. Yes, I understand it's investments in their money, but like it's a pissing match over some millions of dollars. Like it, I have a hard time with that.
mhm.
I'm pro player. I really am. Players need to get paid. They're the product.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I always think that owners don't ever take into consideration is the players are the product. If there was no players on the field, they could just bulldoze all those stadiums and lose all their investment, right? That's just how it would be.
Mhm.
And the players are the product. And you have to think about it like that. And no player is ever overpaid. I That's my feel.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it where I can see both sides, obviously, to the coin. One is being as a player, where this is your livelihood. This is what you devote your life to. Every year you're going in training. When you're going to play, even though you might be in a off season, you're still training because you still want to get better. So to put the better product on the field, on the owner side, obviously you also want to see a return on that investment. That's the other half of that as well. So, but as the expression goes, you always don't need somebody in the middle saying, okay, let's make some common sense things here, right? We move the needle here, we move the needle there. How is it going to affect either party and go from there? And like you said, I agree wholeheartedly, which kind of started laughing. It's like a glorified pissing match between billionaires and millionaires, and you're like, okay, whose is bigger at some point after a while. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
guess what? It didn't make a difference whose is bigger. Is can we both have something that we can agree that live with, that the game doesn't get stupid? Because just like yourself, I'm a baseball traditionalist, right? I love the National League because it makes you think of things like double switches and when you pull guys
Yep.
in, and the multiple time you got to pitch to more than one batter irks the ever 11 you know what out of me. So does the shift, quite frankly. But to me, the way you deal with the shift, and had Hojo on the podcast and we were talking about this, is back in his day, if they would have done that, and that was the fallacy, he would work on just going to the other side to go from there. Now, the managers today would probably say, you know what, I'll deal with the single as opposed to dealing with the home run. But the fact remains is that if you've got that many people on the infield in a shift, if you will, you're worried about the home run. You're not worried about the home run. If you're worried about the home run, then quite frankly, you don't. That guy, the home run is not on the infield grass or on the outfield grass. It's
Right.
over the fence. So
Yep.
I understand about pulling and wanting to pull the ball, but if you start going the other way and you keep continuously doing that and knocking runs in that way, at the end of the day, you make people stop doing it, which is what a lot of times people would hear the fans say, and they go, well, yeah, but runs may, have people watch. Runs mean money. Home runs mean money. Strikeouts, it's like, okay, people are going to strike out, and they're okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but I'm very much like you. I've been a National League guy my whole life and never cared for the DH. I think I think it takes the strategy out of the game, and
Yeah.
it's one of those other things that I just don't like. But
I'm with you, Wani. I learn how to hit the ball the stinking other way.
yeah,
Like in Toronto, those years in 2015 and 16, that's what the middle of our order did
yeah,
down the stretch. They freaking used the entire field. And let me tell you, we were boat racing teams because we did that. Because you know what happens? You go take your hit, you go take your hit, you go take your hit. They straighten out a little bit. Pitcher starts getting a little bit of the tight ass, leaks a ball over the plate, boom, homer.
yeah,
You're right. I think you said it best, and I can't believe that I can believe, but I can't believe I never thought of it in the light that you just said it. You can't fucking defend the home run.
yeah.
You can't defend the home run. Are you going to put somebody in the seats?
Yeah. Well, that's
No.
the thing. It's like, okay, you got four people on that side of the infield. Would you
Yeah.
defend the home run? I go, the home run's over the field. It's not in the
Yeah.
field.
Yeah. You can still hit homers to the backside.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm with Hojo. Be a complete hitter.
Yeah.
Just be a hitter. Stop with the nonsense. I'm there with you, Wani.
My son's a lefty, and he's gotten somewhat pull happy as well at times. And I've said, I go, they leave a ball out on the side, work on going the other way. And like, why? I go, look at how they play you. They're pulling everybody over. If they don't know, if the pitcher thinks he can get you outside because you're going to roll it over as opposed to going the other way, then go the other way. I said, that's what I try to do. I said, I have just as much power going the other way than I have going to
Yeah.
left myself. And I
Yep.
said, but you work on that. That doesn't just how you have to continue to work on it and go from there.
Yeah. You do.
So
And I was brought up. Like, it's funny how the game has flip-flopped in 15 years, right? When
yeah,
I got to the big leagues, Sandy Alderson was very adamant about me hitting at the bottom of the order, taking my hits, seeing pitches, using the whole field.
mhm,
Like, never was the conversation of you need to hit more homers. They're like, no, we need you on base.
yeah.
Find a way to get on base. And you did. And now, hell, they don't even care.
Yeah. Well, Hojo actually made that comment. He said at one point, you want people that are getting on base. Now they're just, they're not even concerned about getting on base. Like even nowadays with a lot of the boys that I've coached in the past, I'm like, you get on base, you work a pitcher, they throw 6, 7, 8 quality at bat, situations. I get it. My son gets agitated because he for whatever reason walks an exorbitant amount of time. I'm like, you're on base.
Yes.
You're causing havoc. Know your role. If your role is to get on base, then that's your, however you do it, that's how you do it. If your role is to hit home runs, and the problem is people don't understand their roles
Right.
and
Well,
what they're there for.
well, now, I mean, to be honest, agents are telling guys you have to have a high slug. You have that's what gets you paid, right? So everybody thinks their role is to put balls 30 rows up.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is you're going to swing and miss a lot more. You're going to strike out a lot more. You're not going to get on base. I always said this about walks. When I was struggling, I tried to see as many pitches as I could, right? To
Yeah.
try to almost reset my eyes. And when I started walking a lot, I started getting my hits. It all goes hand in hand. If you're taking your walks, that means you're seeing the ball you as good as you ever have. And
Yeah.
that's something I teach to my young high school hitters as well. Like, take pitches, see the ball. You get in a zone, pick a cookie to hit, and you get it,
Mhm.
hit it. If
Yeah.
not, be selective.
Yeah. 100%. Where are you located now, Josh?
Near Binghamton, New York.
Oh, okay. So you're in New York. Okay, great.
Yeah. I was actually I was just down in Rockaway Beach actually on Friday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. We did a little family trip for Thanksgiving. So
Nice.
went through
Nice.
the Poconos and did that. So
That's great. That's great. So one of the things that I always do or I've started to do, is do a lot of what I refer to as rapid fire type of questions, right? Um, so we'll start on that, and they're all baseball related type of questions. So we'll hit you with the first one, which I already know. I think I know the answer to already, but universal DH or not universal DH?
not universal DH.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sets the leagues apart. And I think that if you have that separation, it actually makes one game, a little bit better than the other, as opposed to everybody doing the same thing. So I
Yep.
agree with you. The next one was, again, shift or no shift.
Learn how to hit around the shift. I don't mind the shift, to be quite honest with you. It is what it is to me. I mean, we shifted David Ortiz when we would go into Fenway Park. That's really all we used to shift. Now everybody gets shifted. I think it gets carried away. It almost plays as a non-factor for me. I think I would love to see guys become more complete hitters
Hmm.
than reversing the shift almost.
Clock or no clock?
No clock.
Okay. Just
I've
like,
been I there's the thing about there's something in baseball that has always been that there's no time limit. There's no horn that sounds. There's strategy, there's thought process. Same thing with mound visits. Don't tell me how many times I can go to the mound or not go to the mound. There's a lot of shit that happens over the course of a game that you have to be on the same page. That was always the beauty of the game. Not
yeah.
a big clock guy.
Yep, I agree. And not only that, but again, part of being a pitcher, at least in my opinion, is it's a battle between you and the hitter at that point. So if you have some sort of mental advantage because you're taking a little bit of time and you're making them uncomfortable in the box, and you're doing your job as a pitcher, in
Yep.
my estimation.
Yeah.
I mean, Trax and I had a whole conversation about that, and we also had a conversation about one of our fantasy camp players. I'm like, well, he makes you look really fast, so which was kind of amusing. But
He was
I
on he was on my team, by the way.
squirrel
I know who you're talking about.
squirrel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, did you win?
Anyhow.
Did you win the championship this year in league?
No. Oh, no, you might be talking about somebody else. I was thinking about, John. J
John.
John Malik. Malik?
No, 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 no. I wasn't talking
Okay.
about. No,
Okay, different guy.
I was talking about Danny Gould,
Oh,
who
Danny Gould, yeah.
it was nicknamed as Squirrel.
Yeah.
Danny had pitched in a tournament with myself and a number of the other fantasy campers, and there was one game that he pitched, and we continue to break his chops to this day. And he literally, I was in the outfield for this game, and I literally could have taken a nap between pitches.
Yeah.
How long he was taking? He's like, "Oh, I couldn't." Pat wasn't giving me I couldn't tell the signals, and I'm going, just throw it. It doesn't matter at this
Yeah.
point. Just throw the
It's
freaking ball.
it's not 105, Squirrel, come on.
So, but anyways, we
That's
like
good.
we like
Good.
busting these tops about it. But so those are the rapid fires that I have for you today. So what obviously since the time that this podcast started, there's been a couple of new Mets free agent signings. Obviously, one of them is Mad Max, Max Scherzer coming to the Mets, and we've obviously have a couple of more role players in Sterling Marte and a couple of the other outfielders that are out there. What's your opinion on what you think that has happened with the dynamic of this team coming into 2021? If we hope that there is a season.
Yeah, well, I think Billy and Steve Cohen kind of hit the nail on the head, and they brought in some horses. They effectively established the front end of the rotation, which pitching wins. At the end of the day, if these guys stay healthy, they will mow down and beat everybody. The hitting, as all these hitters are starting to mature a little bit, some of the younger ones anyways, or that were younger, they're obviously a little bit older now,
Sure.
but I think this has got a shot to be a really good team. I would imagine losing Aaron Loop takes a little bit of a hit. I'm sure that hurt just a touch, but I think where they're heading is the right place. It's nice to have an unlimited checkbook, if you will.
Yeah.
To it makes things a little bit easier, but I think this will be a fun team to watch, and kind of solidifying the center field spot, the outfield spot with Marte. Um, I think the Mets fans are going to be excited to get down to City Field night after night.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And based off of what they were talking about the other day, it does not look like they're done. Which to hear that as a Met fan is like, oh, we got Scherzer. Okay, great. I guess and Marte, I guess that means we're done. But
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like they're done. It sounds like there might be some more pieces that are coming. Maybe not as big of pieces, but pieces that hopefully they could slot into to this team and give us actually a halfway decent run. Um, what was what I've talked to Figgy a number of different times about him being DFA'd and having the record at one point for being DFA'd by an organization in Major League history. That's I think Figgy's claim to fame. But the other thing is when you were traded, can you talk a little bit about what that feels like in the fact that you were traded by the team that drafted you, which probably you would think probably hurts a little bit, but to know that another team wanted you that much to put you in a trade um, like that, even though it was the team that drafted you. Can you talk a little bit about just that process as to, obviously there's always going to be, in my opinion, a sentimental attachment to the team that drafted you and not really wanting to go and wanting to be a part of what's going on. But can you talk a little bit about that really quick?
Yeah, it was it's strange. It's a strange feeling because as a player, especially a young player coming through the system, you think you're going to be a Met for life, right? Knowing realistically you're probably not, but you don't ever know when that day is going to come. And we when I got the phone call from Sandy
Okay.
to tell me that they were going to trade for me or trade me to the Blue Jays
Mhm.
pending a deal with RA, it kind of was like, I mean, I was coming up with all these guys myself, Bobby Purnell, Daniel Murphy, Ike Davis, Dylan G, Justin Turner. We had a Ruben Tejada. We had a core group of kids that all came up together. And now you just kind of feel like you're leaving them
Yeah.
and you got to go start over. And walking into the Blue Jays clubhouse in Dunedin was strange the first day. Other than Mike Nikias and I, that's all we knew. So it's weird. It's weird when it happens, and then after it happens, it's kind of you know it is what it is. It's over. You new chapter in your life, if you will. But
Mhm.
going to the attachment piece of it, like my kids sit on the couch. We watch baseball games all summer, and they say, "Dad, what fan should I be? Should I be a Yankees fan or a Mets fan?" And I said, "Well, you just pick who you want to be."
Oh
But
no
I
no no
said,
no 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 no! Hold on, hold on, hold
"Yeah,
on. Okay. No, time out. No, no, you can't be what you have to be. You gotta be a Mets fan. You can't be a
okay."
Yankees fan.
So
Come on.
okay, yeah, you're right. So I said, "Listen," I said, you want to get on any side of the fence is fine." But I said, "Here's my recommendation. The New York Mets were my first team. I have a little history there. I think it would be cool if you guys were Mets fans."
Yeah.
Instantly. For Dad, can you order us a Mets hat? Hey, can you get us a Mets shirt? Now my son, he wears the Alonso jersey to school every day. He's got now they're diehards. It's cool. We went to City Field on Mother's Day, and it was strange to sit in the seats. That's probably more strange
I would think.
than
I was gonna say. I
that's
would think that that would probably
well,
go. Wow, what is this like? I don't know what this feels like.
number one, the cost of the beers are a little more expensive there as opposed to in the clubhouse.
Well,
Uh,
yes, I would, which is why when I go to camp, I make sure that I get every cent of that money back, if you will.
yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. So anyhow, that is so the sentimental piece is that my kids now became Mets fans, which I
that's
think is
great.
really cool
Yeah,
to and the drive that they want to go to Citi Field. Like, hey, when can we go to a game? When can we, I that's cool to me.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, my household is as the expression goes, it is a house divided. Because my wife has been a diehard Yankees fan, as I like to say. She was a Yankee fan before the recent weather fans are there, and
Yeah.
people always ask me, "So what do you mean?" I'm like, "I don't hate Yankee fans. I hate the front runners." And they said, "Well, what's a front runner?" I go, "I asked them two very simple baseball questions, and if they don't know the answer to at least one of those questions, you can't tell me you're a diehard Yankee fan." Which my wife is able to answer, which is who was the first baseman before Tino Martinez and who was the shortstop before Derek Jeter. If you can't answer either one of
Yeah.
those questions, now the
Yeah, you
shortstop is difficult. The
yeah.
shortstop I could tell you is difficult. But if you don't know who the shortstop was before Tino Martinez, don't you dare come to me and tell me you're a Yankee fan.
And there's a lot of those.
Oh, there's a lot of those people.
Yeah,
There's a
you're right.
lot of them.
Yeah.
So now, and then all my daughters side with my wife, it's like, oh, we're Yankee fans. And it was like my son and I are like, well, we're Mets fans, so it doesn't make a difference. But at the end of the day, my youngest though is the one that's funny because she goes, Dad, I'm both. And I'm like, no, no, you're not. You're both when you want something and you go to mommy, she won't get it for you. Then you come to daddy and go,
Yeah,
man. I'm like,
that's right.
I know that game. You can't
Yeah.
play that with me.
Yeah, don't pull the wool over my eyes.
No, no, no. So, but anyway, Josh, we definitely appreciate having you on the podcast today. Tell them a little bit about your podcast that you're working on right now, too. So make sure you go and check that out. We'll put that in the show notes, too. So you'll be able to check out Josh's podcast as well. Tell them a little about your podcast, Josh.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So we do on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. We do a podcast. Myself and Ricky Romero, a former teammate of mine when I was with the Blue Jays, left-handed pitcher. The podcast is called Let's Go Ricky Rowe with Josh Thole and Beto Duran, and it's on Spotify and all the stuff I right now. And we do a live show on Tuesdays.
Okay.
It's baseball talk. I mean, we bring guests on, former teammates of ours, and we talk shop. We don't get too much into the kind of the brass of the what's going on. This team lost this game. It's
Okay.
more about what the game was and how was it? How did the game treat you? What did you learn? Those type of things. And
Okay.
we've had great success with it so far. So just looking to keep it going.
That's great. Well, definitely good luck to that, and everybody that's listening and watching. We'll definitely put it down on the video a little bit later on. You'll see a link to go and check that out, and support Josh as well. And Josh will, we appreciate again you coming on, and we'll try to get you back, down the road and get you to talk some more baseball.
Awesome. I love it, Wani. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, pal. We appreciate you. Have a good
All
one,
right.
bud.
All right. You too.
All right.